Hi, and welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of KevinMD. Today on the show, we have Christopher Liu. He's an orthopedic surgeon, but now he's an entrepreneur. He's a speaker, and he's a KevinMD contributor. He recently wrote the articles, How COVID-19 Forced Me to Pivot and Accelerate My Business Growth, and How COVID-19 is Forcing Physicians to Rethink the Concept of Job Security. He's also the author of the book, How I Quit My Lucrative Medical Career and Achieved Financial Freedom Using Real Estate. So, interesting story I'm looking forward to hear. But first, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm really happy to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
So, I'm sure my readers are interested in hearing your story and your journey to where you are today.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to share. I grew up in Houston, and from an early age, I was always the outsider. I grew up with a lot of uncertainty, so that helped me with a lot of my entrepreneurial, contrarian thinking. So there was one point when I was growing up, I was decided to myself that I would never be dependent upon a job, boss, corporation, social security, or a pension, things like that. So I had to create my future prosperity and my future economic success. So in order to do that, I had to become an entrepreneur. Nevertheless, I grew up on the cusp of Gen X and millennials, so a lot of the industrial age ideas where you had to get a stable job, high paying job, was ingrained upon me. So I went to Baylor for medical school. I was part of the MD PhD program, uh, and I got my PhD in bioengineering. But it was during my second year of medical school where I started two companies, and this was right after 9/11 because I saw these types of black swan events that could happen. So I started to prepare. Started two companies in real estate and stocks and options, and grew those to the point where my final year of medical school, I was 29, I was able to generate a full time income. And so at that point, I sought a lot of advice and mentoring, and everybody said, go the conventional route, go the safe, secure route. So that's why I chose orthopedic surgery because that was the highest paying profession, but I wasn't really passionate about it. So did it for 2 years, and really it wasn't. I felt like I wasn't really utilizing my talents and my skills. So the day that Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy, I mustered up the courage, walked into my chairman's office, and turned in my keys, badge, and pager. And from there on, I got my life back. I was able to live life on my own terms, my own values, and my own beliefs. Um, so I spent 8 years investing in single family condominiums, and by my mid 30s, I had become a millionaire. So, and I was able to take a year off in 2016 before launching my consulting company. And so now I'm an advisor for a digital health startup company. I consult for large hospitals. I do a lot of digital programs, digital education, online group coaching, digital products, programs, and seminars. So, and then that's my story. So I'm happy to go from there or take any questions.
So, it sounds like that you started your businesses back in medical school. Now, what kind of training did you have outside of the sciences that helped you start these businesses?
I That's a great question. I had always been an entrepreneur since when I was just very young. I was doing a lot of, for example, my first business. I started a lawn mowing business where I would just knock on my neighbors' doors and offer my services, and I would team up with my friends, and we would just split and share the profits. That evolved into buying my first stocks when I was in high school, and eventually by at the end of college, I had built up a nice sum, for a college student, so that I was able to go out and invest in my own real estate first property. But my real education just came from books, really. I really looked up to the entrepreneurs like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. So, and I read the one book that really changed my thinking and the course of my life was Rich Dad Poor Dad. So that altered the course. I then purchased a book called Getting Started in Stock Options, which was very fruitful during the 2001 to 2008 stock boom. And then also the book Multiple Streams of Income. So those three books really shaped the course of my life to start thinking in terms of diversifying income streams, diversifying assets, and always have a plan B, C, and D just in case things such as COVID or the financial crisis and 9/11, things like that happen.
Now, a lot of doctors write to me and they want to get involved in real estate because when you talk about alternative sources of income, real estate comes near the top of the list.
Mhm.
Now, for those physicians without a real estate background, can you share some tips on how they can get started?
Uh-huh.
Where can they learn?
So I think the first thing is what I advocate to my clients is just start out very small. Like I started out in single family condominiums, and that was very low risk because you know less than 100,000 you could buy a pretty nice sized condo in Houston. It's a little bit different based on where you live, but just start out very small, and then from there, the other thing you can try is house hacking, which I did my first property. So I lived in one room and I rented out the other bedroom and that taught me a lot about email marketing and the customer experience. These days, there's a lot of things such as syndicates and crowdsourcing and crowdfunding. I don't really participate in those, but I think the two things is just start out with just small single family condos and then also house hacking and then go from there. To go to single family residence, duplex, multiplex, apartment buildings, commercial things like that.
So you mentioned one of your comments that COVID was one of those black swan events, and I want to talk about a recent KevinMD article that you wrote, how COVID-19 is forcing physicians to rethink the concept of job security. Now, I was wondering if you could explain, why is COVID making physicians rethink the concept of job security?
Yeah, I wrote it specifically for that question, and really because as physicians we're trained, medicine is the low risk profession. You can never get fired. You can never lose your job. People are always going to need healthcare. But you see that the profession itself is being eroded. Our autonomy, our skill sets, our experience is all being commoditized. So, in other words, we're becoming easily replaceable, either through automation or through mid levels or through insurance and malpractice and things like that. So, I really wrote it to wake people up. So being a physician today is much more different than before 2000. Also, I wrote it because just old ideas. The medical profession really lags behind societal and technological innovation. So I wrote to really try and open people's eyes about education, career, finances, things like that are changing. The other thing is that I've done a lot of studying and reading and talking to a lot of physicians, and it's really alarming that financial literacy is not very high among physicians. So we're all trained to pursue the high income, but we really don't know what to do with our expenses. We don't know the difference between assets and liabilities. We get into a lot of student loan debt. So I really wrote that to really wake people up. Go ahead.
So a lot of physicians are in my boat. My hours are cut. There are some doctors who are laid off, partially furloughed, completely furloughed. Now, what kind of advice can you give them for these doctors who relied on a stable income that's not there anymore?
Yeah, so I had a lot of clients, really high net worth clients prior that I worked with, reach out to me during these times, saying that, one client, he went into the hospital one day and he was told that, he was being let go, and he didn't know what to do. And so really, I think this is a wake up call. And I think it all starts with, it's better to be starting planning beforehand, but if you can't, now is the best time to be educating yourself. I think through social media, through a lot of online summits, through webinars, YouTube, things like that, you can start to educate and prepare yourself for the next COVID type event, because each event is going to happen at a more rapid pace and it's going to happen more frequent, more often, and more severity. So really start educating yourself, start reading books outside of medicine, start talking to people, networking, and just really, we have to start getting smarter and thinking outside the box and doing things differently if we are to progress and survive in the next decade.
So you mentioned real estate that we talked about earlier as a primary source of alternative income. What are some other areas and suggestions that you have for physicians who may not be reliant anymore on that primary job?
Good. One is I got my financial freedom through stocks and options. So I watch the markets every day. I think right now it's a little bit overvalued, but I think, with the second quarter earnings coming out soon, I think we're in for another drop. I'm not sure, but that's my prediction. So I recently launched a lot of online group coaching specifically devoted for stocks during these time. So I had a lot of engagement through there. The other thing I think is the next gold mine for the next decade is just online entrepreneurship. So podcasts, affiliate programs, webinars, online summits, things like that. So really, I think physicians, we as a cohort have a lot of experience and talents and a lot of wisdom to give back. It's just that we have to find the correct channels and means of monetizing that and giving back to our society.
Now, has your training as a physician helped or hurt you as you transitioned into the business world?
It's actually, I would say 75% helped and 25% really hindered me. But that 25% hindered is just because of the amount of time I spent on my career. Looking back, I would still go to medical school. I'd still get my PhD. I would just probably have done something differently after medical school. But it's really helped a lot because, you know, theoretically, if I didn't have an MD, PhD from Baylor or Rice behind my name and orthopedic residency, I think it would be a hindrance to me because it doesn't give me that street credibility and people aren't gonna take you as seriously. The other thing is it allows people to me to reach the physician audience because physicians like to be interacting and helped by another physician rather than someone they don't really know. I also think that being a surgeon, I've always it's really helped me in the entrepreneurship way because now I look at everything in terms of what is the risk, what is the downfall, what are the numerous steps I need to take to mitigate that risk, how can I increase, what can I do to increase my profit. So really being a surgeon and being wary of malpractice and things like that has really helped me because now I'm always thinking of the bottom line, what's the inherent risk to the business. So,
and let's take a step back. And I was wondering if you could share something that you've been curious about or something that you've been passionate about over the last few months.
I've always been a big proponent of technology. I think technology is the David in this whole Goliath paradigm. I think technology is going to revolutionize and change the way we do things. We've seen it, the information age. I think when we see things such as riots and COVID, we're just seeing old ideas clash with new ideas. So I think really people have to start embracing these new ideas and ways of thinking and how we can use technology to best implement change in our profession today. So I think like telemedicine, I think augmented reality, the blockchain is going to change the way we educate, communicate, interact, and deliver patient care. I also think that social media is really a fantastic, powerful tool for everybody because instead of posting photos of food and funny videos, now we can really use social media to educate, inform. We can team together to form movements. So I think I'm really passionate about technology and how it can be best used in medicine.
Wonderful advice and insight. We're talking to Christopher Liu. He's an orthopedic surgeon turned entrepreneur. He's the author of the book, How I Quit My Lucrative Medical Career and Achieved Financial Freedom Using Real Estate. He's a KevinMD contributor. Christopher, what is your take-home message for the KevinMD audience?
Don't let society or someone else dictate your beliefs or your values upon yourself and force you into your career that's not to your liking. These days, we live in a world of abundance. So I'll give you an final example is companies can be created using cell phone, internet, and laptop for free. So really do what you're passionate about, go out and share your message and inspire people.
Well said. And how can people find you?
They can find me on social media. I'm on Christopher H. Liu, MD, PhD. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I'm also on YouTube. Just Google my name. You can find my 4 books on Amazon. And then also I'm on YouTube as well. So my presence is everywhere. You can also email me at christopherliumdphd@gmail.com.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for your time and for joining me on the show.
Thanks, Kevin. I really appreciated our time together.